Welcome to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Hi, and welcome again to another episode of Glocal Voices. My name is Taiwo Afolabi from the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina in Canada. We're live and direct at the IDIERI 2025, the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia, of course, in Canada. And as part of our own way of really contributing to the IDIERI, and of course to the Festival of Arts and Discourse, we brought our crew to Vancouver at IDIERI to really interact and really engage with amazing scholars across the world who have come together to engage over the past 4 days within drama in education, applied theatre, theatre for young audience, and the list goes on and on and on. In this episode, I'm talking to a professor from the University of Toronto, I believe.
That's it. You
Yeah,
got it.
University of Toronto, Elliot. And I'm going to hand it over to Elliot. And before that, I want to say shout out to those behind the camera, Gabriel, Walter, Shola, Caleb, and of course, Stella, who's our admin, helping us to make everything work behind the computer. Over to you. How are you doing?
Thanks, I'm well. As you said, I'm Elliot Leffler from the University of Toronto and thrilled to be here at IDIERI. It's actually my first IDIERI.
Same here.
It's a conference that has been on my radar and my wish list to go to for a long time. But personal bits of my life have interceded at just the wrong years, to keep me away.
And it's once in 3 years, too.
I know, right? So if you miss one, you miss it for 6 years, right? Or during COVID for 7 years.
Yeah.
So really thrilled to be here and really enjoying the conversation, the dialogue here.
Amazing. You're doing remarkable work in Toronto and in other spaces that you're working. And congratulations on your book again, Applied Theatre and Intercultural Dialogue. Tell me more about the book. What are the highlights you want to show, you want to offer us with this book?
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that you said that, and I had a lot of fun at this conference sharing in one of the panels, sharing some of the highlights from the book. And I'm excited to do it also with your podcast audience and to have it really be, I want to put the invitation out there that this, even in a podcast, might be a dialogue, that I would be delighted if people who hear the podcast wanted to reach out to me to talk further about the ideas, especially if their own experience or their own ideas lead them to different conclusions.
That's right.
About how applied theater can facilitate and sometimes struggles to facilitate intercultural dialogue. I recognize that the ideas in the book come from my own life experience as a facilitator, my own embodied experience, and different people come with different experiences, and that would be so fruitful. So I want to put that out there. Here's the thing that I feel like I have learned along the way of researching and writing this book that I want to put out there and share, is that I think applied theater is very good at doing certain things. And I'll say a little bit more about what I think those things are. It's very good at doing certain things, and those things are sometimes credited with being the building blocks for strong intercultural dialogue. And I agree that they can be, right? The things that applied theater does well can be building blocks for intercultural dialogue, but I also think those same things can get in the way of intercultural dialogue, can lead us away from meaningful dialogue. And so that's the conundrum that I'm circling around in this book. What are the ways that the things that applied theater is good at doing is leading us both toward and away from the kind of dialogue that I think could be really constructive?
I know you give some examples in the book. You want to share one of those examples?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the I'm trying in my head now. I'm trying to think about what do I want to share. When I was in graduate school, I had this opportunity to work briefly with a remarkable high school teacher who worked in St. Paul. Her name is Jen Mendel. And she did amazing work in an amazing program that she built over 3 decades of work. And I had the opportunity to work alongside her and with her, never as a co-teacher. I didn't have that opportunity, but I worked sort of under her as an assistant to her, and had the opportunity both to contribute to what she was doing and to learn very much from her. And she built, I think, a remarkable intercultural room in which people were daring to do what they would not dare to do elsewhere in the school, which is to share pieces of themselves that they very carefully protect themselves from sharing elsewhere in the school, to divulge both explicitly and implicitly, to divulge, sometimes divulging more in character than they're quite ready to do explicitly, but also excited to sort of take the challenge to say a little bit more explicitly as well than they would elsewhere about some of the differences that they have, the cultural differences that differentiate their lives from one another.
When I read that particular example, the reason why I didn't say please mention, I just said mention one example.
Yeah.
I didn't want to prescriptive.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you had to go way back to that example. What were the social conditions, or generally conditions, that particular person created in the space for students to be able to offer that kind of level of exploration and divulging and revealing and sharing of themselves?
Yeah.
Which can then help the intercultural dialogue that you're talking about.
Yeah. So it was when I was working with Jan
Yes.
that I developed a piece of vocabulary that is really critical to the book. And I think I owe it to her and to her students to have that be a case study, even though it is a long time ago, because really, truly, it was when I was there that I started to understand creative intimacy. It was with her. And creative intimacy is a term that I circle back to in the book again and again.
Yeah.
Creative intimacy is something, I'm going to make sure I get it right here. Creative intimacy, I describe it in the book as a relationship based on a shared experience of risk-taking, growth, and heightened emotion. It was when I was working with Jan that I began to see that's what's going on in this room. They are daring through play, right? It's an environment full of play in so many ways, which is another sort of key term that I use in the book that has helped me to understand the ways that applied theater warms up a space for intercultural dialogue sometimes.
That's right.
Through play, they are developing this sense of creative intimacy with one another. It is both through the sort of physical and embodied play of theater games, very simple theater games, and also through the play of taking up a role vis-a-vis one another, right? And multiple roles, and shifting roles, right, in the dramatic sphere.
That's right.
Through play, they are experiencing a creative intimacy, this incredible warmth that they have with each other. In her classroom, it was creative intimacy across lines of cultural difference that made them excited to be together, excited to develop their relationships with one another, and willing to share even the things that differentiate them, that place them at different levels on a power hierarchy in the United States, willing to go there, willing to share that with one another, to understand it better with one another.
The contradiction. You started by saying that applied theater is good at doing some things.
Yeah.
And those things can either pull us away from, it can take us to intercultural dialogue or away from. What's the contradiction for creative intimacy? And how might that be the other way of pulling us away from?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So I think creative intimacy is, it's what applied theater does so well, right? It does this through play. And you asked what about it can pull us away from intercultural dialogue. So I think what happens sometimes in creative intimacy is we develop a warmth with one another, sometimes across lines of cultural difference. And that warmth is precious. That feeling of togetherness, Victor Turner would call it communitas, right? And some in our field have picked up that term, that feeling of exquisite togetherness, especially across the cultural lines that sometimes divide us, can feel so good that sometimes all we want to do is protect it. And once we experience that feeling of exquisite togetherness, we don't want to risk it. don't want to risk it falling apart. And so we avoid the very things that I think dialogue might constructively take up about our cultural differences, about our different positions in the power hierarchies that we find ourselves in. And so people avoid complicated conversation that might be too much. And sometimes, fair enough, sometimes people want to avoid it. Who am I to force them into it?
That's true.
Fair. That's complicated, I think, because I think often people are reluctant to engage even if they want to engage, right? Sometimes there's a push-pull within a community as well. But I think it's that preciousness of a warm feeling and a desire to protect and carry forward that warm feeling that sometimes leads us away from the kind of dialogue that might expose our differences in a way that make us feel newly vulnerable to one another.
Interesting. My final question here, because I can stay the entirety to speak about this book. I love it. It's really remarkable what you've done there.
Thank you.
What are your future aspirations in terms of your research and maybe building upon this book, the things you love to pursue as you think about applied theater, intergenerational, intercultural dialogue, or maybe you want to move away from it? What are your aspirations?
Yeah, I can answer that in so many ways. One way is through my teaching. That I have now at the University of Toronto an opportunity that I never had in the institutions in the United States that I had the honor to teach, and they were great institutions. But I have an opportunity to teach incredibly culturally diverse groups at the University of Toronto, which is such a joy, and I'm excited through my work with my students to take some of the principles in this book a little further and to imagine how it might grow in their hands.
That's right.
And with them in community. So that's one way I'm excited to build on this. I'm also now immersed in a study of something that initially feels very different, though for me there's a strong thread of continuity in the work. I'm studying the Oberammergau Passion Play, which is a Bavarian, German, European tradition that is almost 400 years old. It's a tradition of putting on a passion play, so the Jesus story, a dramatization of the Jesus story. And in Oberammergau, they have a tradition of doing that for longer than anyone else in the world. They've been doing it. They have the longest continuous tradition of putting on this play. It is a civic project. It is a local civic community project that is growing in its complexity as the ensemble that performs it, which is in its last iteration, 1,700 people large, the ensemble that performs it gradually is becoming more culturally diverse, right? What it has always been, which the community is very proud of, is also it's always been generationally diverse, right? It has always had
Intergenerational,
yes, it has always been intergenerational. They are so proud of that. They are very keyed into the ways that they are culturally distinct one generation from the next. That has always been true for this project, this massive project. But it is also increasingly culturally diverse in terms of different cultural groups that are participating as Germany becomes more culturally diverse, as Bavaria becomes more culturally diverse. So I am studying the community dynamics of what is the most massive applied theater project that I have ever been exposed to.
Wow, wishing you all the best with that. Sounds like a cool project.
Thank you.
And I think that beyond that, I think it's the implication of that. Again, continue the idea of that intergenerational, intercultural dialogue, because I think it's going to give us a lot.
Yeah.
Looking at history, where what used to be, what is happening right now, and the potential future of that. Well, I have been speaking to Elliot Leffler from University of Toronto, and really zoning on to his book on applied theater and intercultural dialogue. Like Elliot did say, he's offering an opportunity, an invitation, anybody that wants to reach out to him, talk to him more about the book, various ways to engage,
Yes.
feel free to reach out to him.
I would love
And
that.
really love the opportunity to just spend time with scholars and practitioners speaking about their various kind of project and research. So thank you so much for coming, Elliot.
Thank you for having me. Really good to be here.
And this is Taiwo again signing out. See you in the next episode.
You have been listening to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the center, visit www.cset.ca.